Come on in, welcome to Revhead Record Studios. I'm Moni Lashes and I built this studio. It was around the pandemic. My band, The Babes, and I had some great momentum. We were touring the world. We'd been to Japan twice, the US, we toured Australia consistently, non-stop really, and we even went to Iraq and performed for the troops. The pandemic hit, we couldn't tour anymore. That's not going to stop us, I thought. I'm going to build us a studio so that we can actually record our next album. And here we have it. This started out as a tin shed. I mean it was sheet fencing all round, concrete floor, no sound isolation whatsoever. The neighbours hated me. The chicken shop around the corner could actually hear me doing my drum lessons every Wednesday. They loved it, but that's probably not ideal. So I decided to go all in. If I'm going to build a studio, I'm going to do it properly. How am I going to make a tin shed soundproof, weatherproof and drumproof? The main thing I wanted from this studio was to feel When we were in America, we went to a lot of dive bars and performed at the Full Throttle Saloon, and it was like an Americana, log cabin, dive bar feel. So I thought if I could recreate that here in my own place, then the juices would be flowing creatively and I'd have a lot of fun building it too. And this is the end result. In my research, I found out that you need to build a room within a room, but I want two rooms. I want a control room and I want my drum room. That means I have to build two rooms completely isolated from each other so that no vibrations travel through. For those of you who know me, when I'm all in, I'm all in. So off I go, I'm designing, doing a bit of girl math, Pythagoras. How am I going to draw up this studio? And there it is. That's the actual design that I handed to the two young tradies that rocked up to my house. And the next thing, the frames were up. I wanted the roof joist slightly slanted so that noise wouldn't bounce up and down from the roof to the ground. Now, I'm a girl who likes to stick to a budget and I'm not scared to barter. I looked on Facebook Marketplace, which is my favorite thing to do. And I found these two giant pieces of glass that were double glazed, soundproof pieces of glass. So I messaged the fella and I've negotiated down to a cheap price and he even delivered it to me. And we got to talking when he was here and it turns out he's a glass installer. So I gave him a pineapple and he installed it for me. For those of you who aren't Australian, a pineapple's a $50 note. So it's a bargain. That took care of that entire process for me. So Facebook Marketplace is an absolute godsend to me.
Up next was the installation. I went with R5 and R7 to maximize soundproofing
and to keep the temperature exactly how I want it, maintaining my drum tuning.
Just listen to how loud it is in here pre-installation during winter compared to what it is afterwards. The difference is insane.
So the frames are done, the installation is in, it's time for a gyp rocker. We found a dude who's happy to do it for cash and a lot cheaper, so sign him up, here he is.
He suggested the thickest gyp rock possible to help isolate sound even further.
Next thing, I wanted to paint the roofs white because it makes it look bigger. As you can see, it's not the highest roof in the world, but you've got to make compromises in builds and I'm still short enough not to hit my head anyway. Our band is quite a tall band. Corey on bass is about 6'4", Donna's about 6 foot and Joey's about 6'1", and they still have a bit of room to breathe.
Other than just looking cool, I chose the rounded log pieces on the wall as a refraction and sound diffusion technique. The sound won't be bouncing directly wall to wall, and I think it's kind of unique as well.
With this build, I learned a lot of lessons. Some costly with money, some costly with time. I had installed these normal doors that get me through from the control room to the drum room, but the doors weren't solid timber, so the sound was traveling, the bass was getting through real easy. So I had to take those doors off, install some proper solid hearty doors, and it made beyond a dramatic difference. The final step was getting this nice flooring in, and it's got rubber underneath it so it helps deaden the sound as well. So I've really covered as many bases as I can, and I'm doing the neighbours a favour. I'm really trying to keep it as isolating as possible. So that's the build complete, but let me give you an actual tour of what I've got going on here. So we're in the control room now. So as you can see, I've got the rear end of a car. It's a Buick Electra, and yes, it is real, and yes, it is heavy as all hell. From the get-go, I really wanted a statement piece in the studio. And what's more of a statement than the rear of an actual car? This was so heavy. But yeah, I wanted to make a record player because I do love records, and our band even released a vinyl. So, you know, it doubles. It's a record player and a snare stand because, you know, you can never have enough snares. And I also installed some LED lights for the brakes. You know, you gotta be authentic. This is one of my snares. This is the first snare I ever had from my Pearl Export kit when I was 12 years old. It's a beast, and I would still use, there's nothing wrong with it now. I've just got an even bigger beast now. And this is a signed Kenny Aronoff head.
Hey there.
Monica, you rock, apparently. Yeah, I met him at Derringer's when he did a clinic, and he was absolutely lovely. So for those of you who don't know, I set a world record in 2015. I became the first drummer to drum non-stop for 24 hours without a break. I did it to help raise funds for my dad's medical treatment, and that was a success. He's even playing drums. I've got a drum kit set up in there for him. But as a result of that, a lot of drum companies got on board and supported me through that world record, and Pearl first engaged with me then, and they sent me this firecracker snare. It is absolutely awesome. Now over here is my Kiss corner. I'm a massive Kiss fan. I was fortunate last year that a friend of mine, Radar, took me over to the US to see Kiss's last ever show at Madison Square Gardens. It was surreal. I still can't believe it to this day. But yeah, these are just some of the cool collectibles that I've got over the years, not just from Kiss, from all concerts I've been to. Like, we got Tommy Lee's stick from Motley Crue. That's a funny story. We were at the concert and he came over on his drum roller coaster and he pointed down at us, threw the stick, and it went to ground, and a big brawl ensued. And Nick dives in, grabs the stick, and then comes back and shoves it down my shirt so no one can take it. And there it lives. But yeah, this is just like all my prized possessions. Like, I'm a drum teacher as well as a studio owner, and one of my drum kids made this for me. I think it's adorable. It's a trophy. And this here is a single American dollar. What remains of what I earned in America, and I just think it's a good luck, kind of like a good omen. From a practical side of things, I've learned a lot of lessons having this studio. I've learned that you need a toolbox. So I've got my very own toolbox here, and it includes like a mic locker down the bottom. So I've got some excess mics I don't want just lying around getting dusty. So I keep them in there. I've got some drill bits, you know. I've had to become a real Bob the Builder. I've been doing drilling. I've done so many things I never thought I would do, but it's just better to throw myself in there and learn these things instead of expecting other people to do it for me. I'm pretty lucky. This actual shed had a toilet in it because it was a proper man cave, the dude who owned it before us. He used to keep these real classic cars in here, and he used to have a toilet. The problem is he didn't have a basin to wash his hands, so he was just literally a toilet. So, bit gross. So I decided to do something about that, and my dad had a great idea. I'd sent him photos and videos from when we were in Japan and show them how the Japanese have a built-in basin at the top of their toilets. So when I found one in Australia, Dad said, "You got to get that for the studio. You can't have people not washing their hands in the toilet." And I agree. And over here we have the stock standard 1960s Kelvinator fridge, stocked with a whole bunch of Japanese treats sent over by our tour manager from Japan. Here we have our band's new album progress chart. Yes, we are infants and we need stickers for our reward as we've done our little parts. So every time I've done a drum part for one of our songs, I stick one of these ugly mug faces of mine on there. As you can see, I'm the only one who's done any work. Nah, everyone forgot. Everyone forgot to put their stickers on, but we've done all the work and we got a treat every time we did it. As I said in the beginning, I built this studio just so that I could track drums whenever I felt like it. And in order to do that, I need lots of mic track channels. This console provides that. This is the Allen & Heath GSR 24M. It's a hybrid analog and digital console. It's so beyond rare. Like, I can't even express to you how hard it is to get this in Australia.
It is so flexible and it's so tactile and exactly what I need for the job.
I basically have my drums mic'd up 24/7. They've got their own allocated channels. I've got the Marshall stack mic'd up constantly. It's got its own area over this side of the console. I've got everything where I need it at all times plugged in, ready to record. The thing I love about this, or one of the things I love about this console, are the two valve channels. So the valve channels are actually harmonic distortion. So I can plug my guitar amp into it and I can really drive it and get that natural second harmonic. It's amazing. And the other thing about this being the GSR-24M means that it's MIDI. So all of these faders are MIDI automated. If I've got an idea, I want to be able to record it straight away before I lose it. I'm like a goldfish. So as soon as I've got it, it's straight out my head. If I haven't recorded it, it's gone for good. So I've got this guitar. This is the first ever electric guitar that I have. And it's plugged in through my pedal board. Actually, I lie. That pedal board is Donna, my sister from the Babes. That's her pedal board with a kind of combination of mine. So I've added in this drop pedal here, and I've got this DI box running into the console. So at all times, I've got this guitar going through here. I have a huge cable going through to the Marshall stack. I've also got the DI going into the console. So I can have 2 mics on the stack, DI going, and I can record at any time of the day. So yeah, this is kind of like a little heaven for me because I do love playing guitar, and I've got some great amp sims as well if I don't want to fire up the Marshall in there. There are some great technologies and amp re-sims, so I lose track of time. This place is like a casino. There's no clocks, and I could spend 8 hours in here and it'll go like that. I'll do a quick gear rundown on the rest here. So I've got these Yamaha NS10s, which don't just look awesome because it's, you know, the authentic studio monitoring system. They actually are great for monitoring and tracking how you're going. They don't do your tracks any justice. They don't do you any favors making you sound better than it is. If it sounds good on there, it's going to sound good anywhere. As I like to record and mix a whole bunch of different genres, not just rock and roll, I ended up getting these M Audio BX8As. They've got an 8-inch speaker, which provides a lot of bottom end. So when I'm doing R&B, hip hop, a bit of dance, I can actually hear what it's going to sound like a bit better than the NS10s. So I've got a bit of, you know, difference there between the two styles of monitoring. I've got these biodynamic headphones, the DT770 Pros. They're so comfortable. These are the first proper headphones I've ever had, and they're just like cushions on your ear, but they're very good for isolating sound as well. I've got everything running through this Mackie Big Knob. It's just like a portal for me to be able to go from the console to choosing which speakers to listen through, and I can even switch it to mono if I want to really hear the ins and outs of the mix. So this little thing's got a big, you know, kick factor in it, even though it's so small. So this is a real good little find. Again, marketplace. Here I've got the Shure in-ear wireless system. Our band was starting to learn how to use in-ears as opposed to just deafening ourselves on stage. So I've got everything coming through the console, going through here to our wireless packs into our ears. So yeah, Shure, we love you. One of these is a must-have for any traveling band, so I really highly recommend it. I've got the Pro Tools keyboard because I'm a Pro Tools girl. I did a video just the other week about how I learned how to solder. And I learned how to solder by making this mute box for my microphone. I was finding that in Pro Tools, if I wanted to communicate with the artist singing in there, I had to quickly find my track listing on Pro Tools and mute it. Trying to work, yeah, find my track, mute it. By the time that I'd muted it, the thought had gone out of my goldfish brain. So I thought, what if I could just stomp it with my foot? How are you going in there? You know, it worked for me. So I learned how to solder, and actually while I've got you, I don't want to talk a big talk without backing it up, but I think that I have the best cable management you've ever seen. Come have a look under here.
I was sick of the cables collecting dust and being a fire hazard, really.
Enough of me yapping, let's go look at the drum room. Welcome to my paradise. This is it. This is the beast of a kit, the only one of its kind in the world, the Pel Export in these deep sizes. I'm so fortunate to be a Pel artist on the roster, and I would never play anything else because Pel is the best reason to play drums. Look at the size of these things. My bass drum alone is a 24 by 18 inch. It's a cannon. I've got the Championship FFX snare, 14 by 12, Rack 1, 14 by 14, 16 by 16, and 18 by 16.
It is a mammoth of a floor tom.
I am fortunate to be signed to Evans drumheads and ProMark sticks. They get the absolute best tone out of every drum. I use the EC2S's on the toms. I've got the reverse power center dot on the snare. And I've got this big fat snare company, Donut. I just find it adds a little nice crispness to the snare drum. I've only ever used Paiste cymbals my whole life. Ever since I was 5, all I've had is Paiste. I've got the PST7s, I've got the 2002 China, and I've got the 15-inch sound edge hi-hats. Those sound epic, very Bonham-esque. I've always been a single kick player, but this year I invested in my first ever double kick pedal.
I've got the Pearl Demonator.
It's a lefty one, so it's very hard to come by, but I'm really loving how it's coming along. There are some kits you just look at and you want to play it. This is one of those kits, but sucked in because I'm left-handed and only lefties can play this. But that's why it benefits my students, because I'm the mirror image to them. Whenever I'm playing on my hi-hat, they're playing on their hi-hat, which makes it visually easier to learn. When it comes to miking up a drum kit, there's so much information out there, but all I could do was go with what works best for me. So I've gone with, on the snare drum, SM57 top and bottom. I've got the 421s on the toms. My dad used to have those on his kit in the 80s. They worked then, they work just as good now. I've got this Rode mic here on the hi-hat. I've got a couple of pencil mics above, they're both Rode as well. Great Australian company, I didn't realise they were Australian, so hey Rode, love your work. I've also got a SM57 on the ride. I just figured it's better to have the option there. I don't have to use it in a mix, but if it's there, and you know, it's good to have close mics when I need them. On the kick, I've got the D112, and I've also got an SM57. You're going to hear me say that a lot. SM57, SM57.
I've just added the incredible Sennheiser 901 and it captures that low end.
I've seen some really interesting studio setups where they've got the crotch mic. I've got one set up as well. It's a Shure PG56, but it's listed as a WAP mic. But yeah, that's a great little mic because it picks up the overall sound of the kit, and I can just compress the hell out of it and have some fun with it. This down here used to be a phone. It's a Budweiser phone, and I turned that into a dynamic microphone. So this is actually a microphone, and when you listen to it, it sounds very lo-fi, but it actually brings some life into a mix. You blend it in ever so slightly, and it really amps up the recording. Just a fun little project. As I was saying earlier, this Marshall stack, this is Donna, my sister. She's the guitarist in the Babes. This is her rig, and so it's mic'd up all the time. We've got the E609 and this SM57 down the bottom, and it's just unbeatable. This setup is just, it's our tone. The Babes tone is there, personified. If you change anything on this, you change the Babes. So I try not to muck around with this. If I want to do something different sounding from my own mixes, I use an amp sim, because I just love how we've got this going. And I've got Corey. Corey's my brother. He's the bass player in the band, the Babes. He uses Hartkey. That's his rig over there. When it comes to bass, I usually just do DI, but if I want to mic up an amp, that's the one I'll go to. And we've got another Marshall stack in the corner over there. That's got greenbacks in it. And again, it's just another different sounding, it's very good for like British new wave heavy metal sort of stuff, you know, girls' school, things like that. But yeah, I don't have to use that too often because, as I said, amp sims are just getting gnarly now. This is pretty much like the most iconic thing in the studio. If you didn't already know that I love Kiss, from that Kiss corner in there, this is Paul Stanley's Washburn Broken Mirror guitar. It's a very rare guitar, and I'm so honoured to have it from my friend Radar as a corner piece in the studio, and it gets played a lot. I'll play it later for you. So yeah, I am a drummer at heart. That's what I do best, and that's all I really know, but I love playing guitar. And so I started collecting a few guitars. When I see them, it's like, oh, I could have that one. So they're nothing brand fancy, nothing like that. It's all about vibe with me. Got this heavy mofo. Bit of twang, because I've got a bit of southern rock songs coming out and I needed a bit more twang than our usual V LTD. We've got this LTD with the Floyd Rose. Very cool. We've got this big old boy. It's like a Motley Crue style Thunderbird. Yeah, it does the job. Corey in our band, he has an LTD bass, and I prefer to use that when we need to, but this is just good to have on hand, you know. It's not as heavy, but it's nice to play. And what does every drummer need in a studio? An electric 12-string, apparently. I just love this. I found this really cheap on Marketplace, and there we go, a 12-string electric guitar. Last but not least, gotta have an acoustic. I've written most of the Babes songs on this guitar, to be honest. It's just a cheap, what is it, Ibanez, didn't even know what it was. It was cheap and fun to play, holds its tune, never changed the strings on this. It's the same strings as when I bought it probably like 10 years ago. All the guitarists are dying right now hearing that. But if it works, it works. I've also got two room mics. I've got them in the corner here. I'll show you in a second. I've placed them in the corner to get as many reflections as possible. I wanted to make it really bounce off so I could get a real live chamber sound. And I've got the two Rode NT1As. I love these Rode mics. This is my student kit because, as I said, I do hold lessons, and this kit is a Pearl Export kit. This is the first drum kit I ever had, so I've still got it from when I was 12. It is still incredible. I was touring with this up until the pandemic. I only got this kit during the pandemic. This kit has lasted decades, and it will last another couple of decades more. You don't think I'd let my students suffer? Of course they got mics. Got a snare mic, got an under snare mic, got a kick mic. I also have a small little mixing console here for when bands come to jam. My dad's band's been coming in jamming lately. This helps set up. Again, the cable management here is one of the most important things to me. I can't stand mess in the studio. This is meant to be my paradise. I don't want dust collecting. I want everything as pristine as I can. Having said that, I spent about 10 hours last week redoing my cable management in here. Did you spot where my cables are?
I've got all my cables going through this cigar box, through to my console, and then I made this tracking out of PVC to make it tidy.
So yeah, as I said earlier, I'm a big fan of Evans drum heads and ProMark sticks. I use the 747s Hickory, made in Texas, and they're unbreakable. Like really, they get a punishment from me, and they just last and last. These skull heads were actually my limited edition own brand of skull heads. They were the Moni Chrome heads, and it just adds to it, I think. It's all about putting on a show. Drummers have to, go the extra mile. We're hidden at the back. We've got to stand out somehow. What stands out more than this huge chrome kit with a few cymbal heads on the top? So something that I really believed in that was important was ease of access. I didn't want to have to be running from the drums back into the control room just to activate Pro Tools or to stop something. So I set up a secondary little trolley here, and this is feeding from a HDMI from the other TV in the other room. So I just bring the mouse in here and I can control my PC from in here. So yeah, it's completely movable, and I can record and be in my own little world here. Don't need anyone working the console. I can just work my magic on my own. I've realized that I wanted an above camera shot of my drum kit, so I made this and drilled it into the roof.
I think it gets a pretty cool shot.
Thanks so much for joining me on my studio tour. I loved having you here. If you've got any questions or comments, feel free to leave it down in the comments section below. And it really, really helps me if you subscribe to my channel. It means the world to me, guys. Thanks so much.